The number of women that say, with tears in their eyes, you have saved my marriage, you have saved my career. This is life-saving treatment. Related to menopause specifically, my team, we operate very cohesively. Patients come to have effectively sacred space held, right? They don't feel well. They have not been heard. They don't fully understand themselves. They don't know what to do. It is a very vulnerable time, often for women who are not accustomed to being vulnerable. They are gritty, they are hardworking, they can power through anything, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, pump concrete in your veins, figure it out, wake up tomorrow and do it again, and it doesn't work. They don't know what to do with that information. And then they finally work up the nerve to go talk to someone, and their primary or their gynecologist is like, you want birth control? No. There's sort of become this expectation that they can determine on their own what they need based on the gram or something, right? And then they come to their physician who is not fully versed in what they need, and they say, well, I think I need this. And the physician's like, well, we can try it. And effectively, they're just asking for prescription and getting it. And it's very trial and error. And sometimes it works, sometimes it does not, because you don't know what you don't know. I'm not only a hormone expert. I also understand medicine and thyroid and MCAS and SIRS and the whole picture. From a professional standpoint, I am an MD, I'm family practice trained, and I am integrative trained and board certified through the Arizona Center, and I am functionally trained and board certified through A4M. Perhaps most importantly, I have been the unicorn, the was not listened to, had many symptoms that didn't make any sense, and it was very easy to dismiss the symptoms as something that could just be swept under the rug.
So we are going to talk today about menopause, and it's a very important topic. I am severely underqualified to discuss this on so many different levels, but I'm glad that we could get you in here today. If you could just kind of tell me a little bit about who you are and why you are a great person to talk to beyond just being female.
That's fair. That is a qualification, but honestly not inherently a great one. Many females have not yet gone through menopause, or their individual experiences are completely different than other experiences. As a human, I will be 40 in October, so I am in the, I'm still in a postpartum state. I have 3 little girls, 6, 4, and 10 months. Most women will tell you that that early postpartum time frame is sort of like a mini menopause. There's a lot of hormone withdrawal. There are a lot of shifts in every aspect of your entire being, physical and metaphysical, which is certainly akin to menopause, but they are very different. From a professional standpoint, I am an MD, I'm family practice trained, and I am integrative trained and board certified through the Arizona Center, and I am functionally trained and board certified through A4M. I have done far too many hours of education. And I will never stop. But perhaps most importantly, I have been the zebra, the unicorn, the was not listened to, had many symptoms that didn't make any sense, and it was very easy to dismiss the symptoms as something that could just be swept under the rug or weren't bad enough to be a disease and therefore didn't really need treating. And that was a decades-long process of healing and has led me to do what I do, where I don't think anyone should ever be gaslit or ideally misunderstood even. And menopause is critically important as a window. We were just speaking even before this on how it became a movement just recently, even though women have gone through hormone shifts their entire lives. And there are many, many ways to speak on that. But effectively, I carry the stories of many, 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 many women. I get the privilege of speaking with so many different kinds of people throughout their lifespan. And because I am family practice, I do cradle to grave, and I have for over the course of my career. And so watching women go through hormone shifts and understanding that menopause is not a place that you walk into one day. You don't open the door and wake up one day and say, oh, today is menopause day, right? It's like puberty. It doesn't happen like that. So anyway, I enjoy talking about it.
I think that's fantastic. We also connected through Essential Health. Tell me a little bit about what Essential Health is, and you founded it, correct? Like, why did you start Essential Health?
So Dr. Jay Stevens had the original idea, and then I came in a few years later to be hired for a second location, and effectively he and I co-founded what Essential Health is today. It started Essential Health and Wellness, where he wanted there to be an option in the area long before functional medicine was understood, long before executive health was a thing. Nobody was talking about it, and he just felt like Western medicine was failing people and he needed something better. And so we brought one of the earliest DPC models to the area. And then when I was brought on, I am more of an engineer mind, and I have learned to release the visionary beast, right? But as you must in entrepreneur world. But in the beginning, it helped to have someone with a structural mind to come and take the vision and then make it functional from a business perspective. We have programmatized things, which effectively lets our system work cleanly without making algorithmic medicine. And that was a big nuance, right? A lot of places have sort of willy-nilly business practices, but the medicine is if you follow this path, you get this treatment and you move on and you fit into the box. And nobody fits into any box, I will tell you. It's just you are your own collection of cells, and it is different than anyone else that I take care of. So it's been fun to build that together. But what we do now, I mean, the byline is optimizing health and longevity, right? That's what we do. And what does that mean? Different things to everybody, but if someone prioritizes their well-being, we are the place for them. For some people, that's access and expertise, and for others, it's a place that understands them when no one else understood them. For most people, it's coming home to a place where one quarterback understands all of the different aspects of care, and that is what makes us very unique in the area. Even here, there are functional experts, there are hormone experts, there are optimization people, there are influencers and biohackers and Western medicine docs, and a lot of flavors in between. We are not a med spa. We are not a functional only practice. We are not a primary care only practice. We understand deep medical care and how to be an optimal human. And to marry those things together is special.
That was really what, because I reached out to you. That's really what drew me to Essential Health. Was it's very holistic and like it's actually looking at the whole person and then also the whole way of helping that person, and not trying to just pigeonhole them into the one thing that we do. So this is how we treat you. You're trying to find the best solution for actually treating the person.
That is the hope and the goal.
I really like that a lot. You've mentioned that you've seen a lot of stories or a lot of different people. Is there a lesson that you've learned from one of your patients that really has stuck out to you?
So many. Related to menopause specifically, my team, we operate very cohesively. Patients don't come only to see the provider. They come to have effectively sacred space held, right? They don't feel well. They have not been heard. They don't fully understand themselves. They don't know what to do. It is a very vulnerable time, often for women who are not accustomed to being vulnerable. They are gritty. They are hardworking. They can power through anything. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, pump concrete in your veins, figure it out, wake up tomorrow and do it again. And it doesn't work. They don't know what to do with that information. And then they finally work up the nerve to go talk to someone, and their primary or their gynecologist is like, you want birth control? Like, no, what? Or it's, a natural part of aging. You just do. So the lesson is that my entire team knows that when a woman, when a patient walks in, they are often grumpy. And we hold space for that. And we don't take it personally, right? And we expect bidirectional respect, of course, but it starts with respecting that person and the journey that they are on, and understanding that they do not feel well, and they want and they need transparency. They need to know what the expectations are. They need to know what they can expect from us and what we expect from them. They need to be held through a really confusing journey. And a particular patient case sticks out, who is a wonderful, wonderful woman, and I hope she's listening because I love her. But when she came to us, she had wicked road rage. That was her symptom. That's not a symptom of menopause. We don't talk about road rage in women. And people would be like, oh, it's too much testosterone. False. Almost always not enough. In men also. Aggression and irritability, you'd have to be off the charts high on T for that to be a symptom. It is almost always insufficient support, because T in men, in women, supports a sense of alpha,
Yeah.
I am confident, I am secure, I can handle the situation, I have assertiveness, and I believe in myself. When we don't have that, it's chaos. I don't believe in myself. I don't know what's going to happen. Not safe, not safe, not safe is the primal signal that this woman's body is getting. And safety is the cornerstone of female well-being.
Yeah.
And we kind of dig into that. But she came with road rage. And I was like, okie dokie. And I mean, like following people home. Like it was not safe.
Okay.
And she knew this. And she was like, this is not good. I think my husband's going to leave me. I don't even know what to do with myself. And she had been other places and had been kind of on this roller coaster of up, down, up, down. One of the other critical pieces is that patients have been, I want to say, mishandled, right? They go and they don't get the treatment that they need. And so they go to the internet and they go to chat groups and they go to their friends, which is maybe better than nothing that they were getting.
Yeah.
But there's sort of become this expectation that they can determine on their own what they need based on the gram or something, right? And then they come to their physician who is not fully versed in what they need. And they say, well, I think I need this. And the physician's like, well, we can try it. And effectively, they're just asking for a prescription and getting it. And it's very trial and error. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it does not, because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so this woman had basically been on this roller coaster of like, well, I think I need this, and I think I need this, and I think, and they were changing and all over. And I looked at her, and we talk about playing with a full deck. And this is, again, I am not only a hormone expert. I also understand medicine and thyroid and MCAS and SIRS and the whole picture. I am not a Lyme specialist, but I understand Lyme, right? So this woman came and she was a mess of inflammation. And when you are running hot all the time and your stress is sky high and the burden that you carry is sky high, it doesn't matter how many hormones I give you, you're going to burn through them and they're not going to work. But if I just tell you to go deal with your stress, that's like you'd never, ever tell a woman to just relax. She will explode in your face, right? So we took the whole picture. I helped give her an actual anchor routine. This much supplements, not this many, right? But this many that were very targeted to what she needed to bring that heat down.
Yeah.
I supported her estrogen and her progesterone, which she desperately needed. I gave her testosterone, which had not been given because people said she was angry and didn't need any. Absolutely needed that, right? For balance. And she began to have an even keel for the first time in her adult female life.
Wow.
And it 180.
Wow.
Changed her life. And I hear that, I think 10 years ago, if someone said, this kind of medicine changes people's lives, I'd be like, yeah, whatever. I was in the Southside Hospital, like chest tubes and heroin addicts, and that was changing people's lives. Kinda, arguably, I did the hard work and they came right back, And now the work that I do keeps the motor of the world running. I catch people who've built something over their entire lives, and they are finally at this point where they have resource and coping skills and education, and they have built their platform, and they are known for what they do, and they are good, and they are contributing to society, and then their brain falls out, and they feel gassed and terrible, and they're like, I think I have to quit my job because I'm a blubbering mess, and I'm hot, and I'm sweaty, and I'm moody, and I can't think straight, and everyone just tells me that this is normal. I'm like, absolutely not. I decline. So
that's amazing.
It is amazing.
Thank you so much for sharing. So help me understand, what is menopause really? You said there was a lot of different ways of actually diagnosing it or acknowledging it. But what, as someone who will never go through it, how can I kind of communicate to people about what they should look out for?
I feel like there's so many directions to go with this, from how a man can support women through this, but maybe I think the understanding what it is the basis for everyone, because menopause is talked about in so many different circles as kind of different things. Clinically, menopause as a state is when a woman has already completely transitioned out of her own natural hormone production. She no longer ovulates. She no longer makes her own estrogen and progesterone in her ovaries. The hallmark is no longer menstruating. That is a challenging hallmark for a lot of women for a lot of reasons. They've had an ablation, they've had a hysterectomy, they have an IUD, they don't menstruate for any number of reasons. that's not a cue that helps them,
Yeah.
right? But if you do, it's 1 year, no menstruation, and the hallmark is withdrawal completely from estrogen and progesterone.
Mm.
That is over here. There is no, like we talked about earlier, there's no, you wake up one day and you are in this state of being. To be a woman is to expect constant waves of change over your entire lifetime. Tiny, tiny babies go through telarchy, like this early pre-pubertal changes. A newborn baby can have a teeny tiny period from her mother's hormones, and then 1 to 2 year old can have tiny breast buds that come and go because she is moving through hormones, and then 2 and 3 year olds get this like mood PMS thing when they go through their hormone, and that just continues through our lives. And what I'm finding more and more is that I have women having children later. And so this cuts both ways. If there are women who either didn't have children or had them very early and then had a prolonged period of relative stability, regular menstrual cycles for years, and then it starts to change, it is more obvious to them because they're like, oh, this is not the same, right?
Yeah.
But I have a lot of women who are having children into their late 30s and early 40s, and they're basically rolling from postpartum into perimenopause. And that can be sort of crushing to the spirit because they're like, well, wait. But if we understand what it is, so this goes back to the hormone piece. What is perimenopause? In a normal ovulating cycle, the first day of the period is the first day of the cycle, right? So we bleed, and it's weird because we think about the bleeding being the end. It's not. The bleeding is the beginning. We have shed the lining. We have very low estrogen and progesterone. And somewhere during the cycle, it is not always midpoint. It is definitely not on day 14 for most women, but somewhere in that window, which is why timing alone is not a great birth control method, right? Like you need to know your body. But somewhere in the middle, you get a little estrogen rise and your brain signal drops LH and FSH. And that triggers a follicle to drop an egg, right? And then your body's like, oh, an egg. We're going to make a nest, right? And it starts to make the follicle stays where the egg came from. That's a corpus luteum, yellow body. And that pumps out progesterone, which is stabilizing to the endometrial lining. And your body's making all this estrogen to grow the endometrial lining. So we are thickening and stabilizing and thickening and stabilizing, and we are hormonal because we have many hormones in this sort of week to 2 weeks leading up to our next period. But there's supposed to be this much progesterone and this much estrogen, right? And then there is no baby, and your body gets very mad, and it chucks the nest, and it's mad at you, and you have PMS because it was making a nest, and it doesn't have a baby, and that's a whole thing, So we withdraw from our hormones, and they both come down. And for some women, that's really dramatic, and that's when we see like PMS, premenstrual syndrome, PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, premenstrual migraines, so like cyclical migraines, cyclical eczema, cyclical stomach issues, cyclical psychosis. Like we see wild stuff from withdrawal. And then because there is no progesterone stabilizing this thickened endometrium, it sheds and we have a period. In perimenopause or premature ovarian failure, there's like awful medical terms for things, right? Or autoimmune, there is another condition where you can autoimmune attack your own ovaries, and basically they don't do, for lots of reasons. If the ovaries don't make that follicle, so an anovulatory cycle, or we're in this window of perimenopause where they sort of hiccup. It's kind of like a sputtering of the gas tank, right? Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and maybe they get longer and maybe they get shorter. But what's happening is instead of progesterone and estrogen, we swap. So we make lots of estrogen and we're stacking it, and our liver's not processing it as well, and maybe we're constipated and we're just holding estrogen, and maybe we're overweight and our body tissues are making even more estrogen, and we're stressed and we're making even more, and we're exposed to plastics and phthalates and we're making even more estrogen and all those fragrances that we're using, right? So estrogen is way up here, and progesterone is like, I'm trying, but there's not enough. And so when we swap, we are not stabilized emotionally, endometrially, and this is what explains the vast majority of perimenopausal symptoms and why they can come and go and why they can be up and down and why we feel really moody and bloated, and suddenly the midsection weight gain spare tire situation is happening no matter how many sit-ups and crunches you do. That is not why you have one, right? Cravings change, sleep gets disrupted, and all of this cycles in on each other because you aren't stabilized to move through all of the detox pathways that you're supposed to. So that is how I treat perimenopause
Okay.
is by supporting, I'm going to tell you to anchor in your routines, take all the decision making that you can off of your table. I want you to write down your entire allostatic load. And this is an important concept I talk about all the time now. We are great at compartmentalizing. Stop me if you want me to do something else, but this is important.
No.
Okay.
I talk about this with clients all the time.
Great.
They do not like
We don't
understand like the
understand.
combination of all the stresses.
Particularly applicable to this audience, right? Like I see all the time, I get other people's functional medicine cases. I get the doctor's doctor, right? Not with hubris, but just because I've seen some weird shit. And then I get the zebras and the unicorns and the people who nobody else can figure out. A lot of it is missing that foundational piece. So they go to the gym and they're gritting, like we talked about earlier, and they're trying. They're white knuckling through life.
Yeah.
And they're eating less and they're moving more and they are stressed. And you tell them, this is cortisol. Like we understand. And they're like, I hear you. What do you want me to do about it? Right? And for years, I struggled with that question. As a provider, I'm like, what do I want you to do about it? What can you let go of? They're like, nothing. I had a woman 8 years ago, and I will never forget. She is still a patient and is an incredible woman, high achieving, high entrepreneur, was going through a lot at home. And I was telling her, this is before I had kids, before I had my own kids. And it was like, listen, your stress is really high. That's the source of all your problems. Let's talk about how to mitigate stress. And she was like, do you want me to quit my job or give up my kid? I was like, what do you mean? I was like insulted, right? She's like, that's where my stress comes from. I run my own business. It is intense. I have a daughter. She's got stuff going on. What do you want me to give up? I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question. Yeah. So now what I tell women is, look, and men, this is universal. We are great, especially as high achievers, at compartmentalizing. So you're going to see this one thing in front of you and be like, that's not very much. I could do more than that. I should expect more of myself for this thing. False. Put it all on the table.
Yeah.
Because allostatic load, and this is something that even with my 2 decades of education at this point, I am like just in the last 3 months integrating into my person that I understand that these are not different buckets. There isn't a fitness bucket and a mental load bucket and an emotional load bucket and a hormone load bucket and a what if I have an infection going on and who else am I caregiving for and what am I vigilant for and what am I responsible for? That is one bucket. This body, this mind and spirit, this nervous system handles all of that in lifetime all the time. They are not different people. Which means when I want to create adaptive fitness, I have to be in a state of adaptation. And that requires resilience. And so what I find is that we're skipping over resilience because it's too amorphous. I tell people okay, yes, I'm stressed. I get it. Meditation is punishment. It's grown-up timeout, right? Like I'm not going to do it. It doesn't feel good. Got it. And so they're cold plunging and they're saunaing and they're fasting and they're taking cleanses. And I was like, load. Yeah. You're adding load to load. This is not helping. Yeah. You need routine. You need morning sunlight in your eyeballs. That is the puny little thing that sounds stupid that is critically important to setting your cortisol and circadian rhythm for the day, which is everything. Because then you sleep at night, and then you recover, and you build capacity. Part 2 is that people then get this much margin and assume that that means they're ready for adaptation, and they load in a training for a half marathon. I'm like, we weren't ready. So all of this to say, this spectrum of hormone shifting is very fluid. It shifts all the time. It is very rarely permanent. And it requires riding the waves. As a partner, this is true from day one through the end of a woman's life. And it is about understanding that there's a fabulous social media guy, and I wish I knew who he was, but if you've seen him, you know, there's this great analogy where he says, my wife is the ocean. Like she can be a tempest, she has depths, she has power, she has all of this, but what she needs from me is to know that I am the safe harbor in which she can find rest. She can break against my walls. I am the mountain that can hold that. so that she can find rest. She doesn't need me to fix it. She doesn't need me to mansplain it to her. She doesn't need me to get involved. She just wants me to hold space for her challenge and know that I am going nowhere. And that's what we need. We need stability in a time of nothing is stable. I need to know that you are. So
that is so beautiful. I'll definitely have to find that because I love
awesome.
that. To kind of pulling it back a little bit to the hormones.
Mm-hmm.
So perimenopause is like this initiation of the change in balance between progesterone and estrogen.
Yes.
And estrogen becomes higher, so we're not able to filter it out. And then as it waves, is that why it can be challenging to almost acknowledge that you're in perimenopause? Because it's some days you are estrogen, progesterone, and then some days it's like this and you feel almost more normal?
Yes. The challenge in identifying it has a lot to do with culturally what we expect women to be going through and what they expect of themselves. So yes, it comes and goes, which makes it difficult. But it is also overlapped with a lot of times women are still cycling, so they aren't thinking about it.
Yeah.
Because if their cycles haven't changed, then why would their sleep or their moodiness have anything to do with those changes? But often it's among women, especially among women of the previous generation, who are the leaders that we're supposed to be looking to for guidance, are like, you're busy. Of course you're tired. You have little kids. Of course you're tired. You run a business and you have a lot in your head. Of course you have brain fog. That's normal. It is not. It is not. It is not. But for so many women, that's what they hear. It's expected.
Yeah.
And they come to me and I'm telling them that their labs say that their brain is aching for more of something. And they're like, that's just because it's because of what I've done. I'm not taking care of myself well enough. There's a lot of self-blame. And that clouds the way of progress. I'd say one of the dark sides of functional medicine is that there's this idea that if I just lived a perfect life, I could control all of my symptoms. That is not true. Do we have a lot of control? Yes. Can we make our lives better? Yes. Is there any path for any of us that avoids all suffering? No.
And is there any predictions? Like, can you look 10, 20 years in advance to see what it could potentially look like for an individual? Or is it just kind of a day by day? You don't really know what's to come next for you?
Somewhere in between.
Yeah.
The 10 to 20 years down the line, there is some good expectation of if your mom went through menopause at 45, you're probably not going to go through menopause at 53, right? Okay. You'll probably go through menopause in your mid-40s also. There is a lot of this that I think is genetically predisposed. And then the rest is lifestyle and what your life held for you. Did it hold multiple pregnancies? Did it hold lactation? Did it hold high stress? Has it held multiple surgeries? There are so many factors that lead to when a woman goes through the process. But like at Essential, when I'm caring for someone from a hormone perspective, we're doing labs quarterly. And 10 years ago, that was frowned upon, and I had gynecologists yelling at me, telling I was giving all my women breast cancer, which of course was not true. And now they are doing similar care, and that's great, right? But at the time, it was also that labs were overkill. Well, they change all the time, so it doesn't mean anything. Like, no. Just because it's complicated doesn't mean it's useless. It means you have to know how to read the language. And this is really important because I'll have months, 6 to 12 months, and I know that a woman is entering this time period, even maybe before she does, because I'm looking at, again, when I see estrogen rising, when I see progesterone falling, when I see FSH rising, creeping, the brain signals getting louder and louder. This is the thermostat, right? The AC doesn't kick on, or even if it's on, the system's getting louder. I need more. That tells me what I need to know, and I can have that conversation with them.
Okay.
You don't have to be in the dark.
That's awesome. And then you kind of mentioned this briefly, but I want to take it back to, I believe there was a study in the 2000s that really shifted treatment expectations and then also the fear around treatment.
That would be the Women's Health Initiative. Yes, the WHI. There were aspects of that study that tried to do good medicine, right? They looked at many, tens of thousands of women. They were looking at A lot of them, interestingly, were nurses and healthcare workers. So there's like a high stress, poor lifestyle, shift work. There were a lot of factors that were not factored in. But the biggest flaws in the study were that they generally looked at, or did not at all differentiate among, but primarily were looking at oral estrogen and progestin. There's a big key here. People get confused between synthetic and natural, bioidentical. What synthetic versus natural is not really meaningful, where it comes from or how it's made. It matters if it is lock and key with our systems or not quite the same, right? Progestin is not quite the same. So your body's kind of shunting it through a system that's not quite made for it, and it makes more toxic metabolites. Oral estradiol, similar. It's going to go through the mouth, and then it has to get processed through the liver because you absorbed it through your GI system. And that is where we run into the clot risk, the stroke risk, the heart attack risk, the breast cancer risk. We also had a period of time where I think they were being largely overdosed, so supraphysiologic. This is where Western medicine and functional medicine often get, and even in functional, like you have to be careful with hormone specialists. We want to meet you where your body needs and stay there. I am not trying to supraphysiologic. We will run into danger territory. Your body has checks and balances against that. So we don't want to get into that territory. So we're looking at too much for too long, wrong pathway in people with toxic lifestyles, and insufficient matching with progesterone. And then, they had bad outcomes. But it's a lot like the China study that looked at meat and diets and cancer and decided that all red meat gives you cancer. But we were putting a grass-fed filet next to a sausage biscuit and calling that the same input. It's not. They're not the same input. So there was a lot of fear. We were using hormone replacement therapy was widely done leading up to that study. And then there was absolute fear and chaos. No woman could ever be on estrogen ever again. Even when I was in residency, which was long enough, but not that long ago. We're talking 10 years, and it was very clear. You will not put a menopausal woman on estrogen unless it is so severe, her symptoms are life-threatening. And even then, you're only going to do it for 3 to 5 years maximum, and then you must withdraw or you have sentenced her to death. And some of this goes back to common sense, and I will wrap this because it is critically important for me to understand. And this has come to light since then. And it's sort of like, okay, wait, you mean to tell me that I have a woman in her late 40s who can't function in her life because she feels terrible and her marriage is at risk and her mind is at risk and her livelihood is at risk, and that's not enough to justify giving her treatment? When we're going to leave that. That needed to happen, right? But it's okay to give oral combination estrogen and progestin to a 12-year-old for the next 30 years of her life, and that's not giving her the same risk? Are you kidding me? And it would just blow my mind that didn't click for anybody. They were like, well, of course, because that's different. I mean, it's not different. It's oral estrogen replacement therapy in a teenager who already has too much estrogen. Stop doing that, right? And it has come to light that oral birth control pills are oral hormone replacement therapy, and the earlier we start and the longer you're on them, the higher your risk is later in life. So arguably, a lot of women who are diagnosed in their 40s and 50s, if they have even started HRT yet, it's not the HRT, it's a lifetime of exposure that led up to here. So common sense is important.
It took me way longer to notice or acknowledge or learn that that's what I knew, like birth control pills were hormone replacement, but I didn't necessarily understand that it was basically HRT. Like I never connected those things until very, very recently when I was talking with a client. I was like, oh, it's basically the same thing, like slightly different application, but like we're trying to achieve the same goal. It was very, very eye-opening for me. Okay. What was the big shift from between the WHI study and now to where it's coming more in favor or at least more accepted to start HRT, especially for women in menopause?
I think that one is more nuanced and a little bit complicated, but largely it is that we, as a medical society, withheld hormone replacement therapy from women for decades. And I think at some point, truly, women had enough.
Yeah.
And they said, I am choosing to take that risk. You're telling me that the risk isn't worth it, but it's not really your choice to make. I'm telling you that my bone loss and my brain loss and my heart risk and my libido being down and that I can't think are worthy of treatment, and I will accept whatever risk theoretically exists that may not even be there. I need treatment. And then we had enough providers willing to do that. And, God knows, I've been through the ringer where we write the risks, and I have documented and I have consented this patient, and this is off-label, and we are doing this investigationally, and we have to, CYA, right? I have to make sure that they know all of the risks and everything that is talked about. And then ultimately, they were doing really well.
Yeah.
And it prompted more and more crowdsourced medicine where people talk to each other and effectively demanded better of the system. And that became a consumer audience, which caught the attention of pharma. And that's okay, because there's a lot of money, which means studies, which means evidence, which means now we have the evidence that disproved the WHI. And we know that topical estrogen, patches, creams, vaginal inserts, pellets potentially function very well, and they don't carry the same risk. And so now we have a method, and we have an educational source, and we have a pathway that helps provide that legitimacy and validity for providers. There's a lot of noise about, doctors effectively being bad people that are all in the pockets of big pharma. And that is, generally speaking, truly not true. These are good people who work very hard, and they have been educated through an entire system that is built that way. They need permission from guidelines, because if we say that guidelines don't matter, we are back to dark ages, right? We have to have guidelines. They must exist.
Yeah.
And so knowing that we have forced the issue, basically, we now have the data that supports it. And now vast majority of gynecologists and primary care doctors will support some form of hormone replacement therapy. Increasingly, now the evidence is coming out that, in fact, we shouldn't wait at all, and we should be doing this the moment that estrogen starts to drop, because any withdrawal from estrogen creates risk. And that withdrawal and then replacement can be where some of the risk lies. And so it's almost a 180 where you're like, you've done this patient a disservice by not putting them on estrogen, which is great, but it can be hard to whiplash navigate,
Gotcha. How do you typically test, or when would you start, testing to set maybe a baseline, because everyone's levels are going to be expected to be different? When would you recommend women to start testing their estrogen levels so that they know where they are, and if they do drop?
That one is really tricky, because estrogen levels shift dramatically within a single cycle over and over and over and over again. So it's less about, it's different than testosterone, which is relatively static. And that's true for women too, even peri and postmenopausal. If T is low, it's not because of perimenopause, it's because we aren't making testosterone from the adrenal glands. That's a stress and cortisol cascade picture more than an ovarian picture. So it's relatively static. I like a baseline here because I know where you were at when you were healthy and your best. Estrogen's all over the place. It has much more to do with that thermostat, the FSH and LH coming out of your brain. And that will be low in the follicular part of the cycle. It will be really high in the ovulatory part, and it will be somewhere in between, but usually low again in the luteal phase. I like testing women at a lot of parts in their lives because I really like data. But if I had a woman who said, I don't have access to constant data, I don't have a provider that I don't know where to do or where to get all of this information, I would tell her that in her young adult life, somewhere in a normal cycle, in her luteal phase, when she knows she has ovulated and come back down and is maybe 5 days before her period's going to start, I want to catch her at this peak part. And I would like to know what that looks like for her. Because I think that is helpful. The FSH, LH becomes useful early when they have symptoms. There's a lot of, you get into PCOS, and now they're calling it, polymetabolic ovarian syndrome. And there's noise about why that has changed as well. But there are many, many nuances to women's hormone care. Ideally, she's making a relationship with someone who will test it at different points in her life. But if you're 35 or older and you have any symptoms that you think might be related, I would test. Perimenopause begins for a lot of women in their late 30s. Okay. We are not talking about 49-year-olds.
Is that, because I mean, it's usually been like 40, 50 and up.
Right.
Is that a shift of, you think, lifestyle or like environmental factors?
Over the long haul, yes, but short answer, no. I think that it has been 35 for a long time. It just was under-recognized because often that cohort of women is also in the thick of child rearing and building business, and there were other reasons to blame being tired and brain foggy and low sleep on, but it is often early perimenopause.
Okay.
I do think that maybe primal living, women had menopause later and shorter perimenopause. We didn't have as much of the autoimmune shift or the massive stress load, and it goes back to that autonomic nervous system balance. So I do think there's an environmental piece, but a lot of this is our own internal resilience. And when our bodies are overloaded all the time and they are under-supported, we run into issues.
So what I'm hearing, it feels like HRT is kind of the recommended treatment for like managing systems or symptoms.
There are very few women and men in whom I say you are not a candidate for HRT, right? Because ultimately, one of the parts of consent that's really important is to understand the risks and benefits of the treatment or therapy I'm offering and what alternatives exist. And one of the alternatives in every case, in any consent, is do nothing.
Yeah.
Do nothing is an option. Natural menopause and natural andropause is an option. And you can decline until you die. And that is an option, right? Yeah. And I have a lot of people, death is not an option. That will come for all of us, right? But do I need to feel decrepit at 40? No. No, I do not. I am almost 40, and I do not feel the way I thought 40 was going to feel in the best possible way because there is support.
Yeah.
So yes, hormone replacement therapy, I think of just like any other depletion in the system. If you were low in vitamin D, I'm going to give you vitamin D. Yeah. If you are low in fish oil, I'm going to tell you maybe you can do lifestyle things and try to eat more fish, but if that's not enough, then we're going to give you fish oil, right? If you're diabetic and your pancreatic islet cells aren't working, I'm going to give you insulin, right? If you withdraw from the hormones that are life-saving and protective, this is about more than hot flashes. And largely that is still the articles that we get. It's like, well, hot flashes have other treatments. Like, this is not about that anymore. There are, yes, vasomotor symptoms, sure, but it is about cardiovascular protection, brain protection, kidney protection, skin protection, how we feel, how we function, how we live, how we love. The number of women that say, with tears in their eyes, you have saved my marriage, you have saved my career. I have not done it. This supporting this woman has allowed her to be her best self.
Yeah.
This is life-saving treatment. It is not casual for looks.
I love that. I think putting treatment, like proper treatment, in the category of removing it from aesthetics and actually looking at the big picture of what matters to people, like actually matters. We field a lot of those same questions as trainers. Like, people come in here to lose weight, but I have to have a lot of conversations and like honest conversations of when they want to do like a very aggressive diet or a very specific diet. I'm like, but what are you trying to achieve and why? Is this really going to get you towards your goal? And what does your life look like if you actually do that? If you decide to go carnivore and you can't have a cookie anymore, like, is that a life that you want to live? Or, so we're just like weighing if you don't do this, or if you do this, what does it look like for you, and how can that help you or hurt you in certain ways? And sometimes I can see how it's hard for a lot of people to see that, but I love that it's, because that's way more impactful and like life-changing than like diet and exercise. It's helpful and it's great for it, but like, you can have a far bigger impact for a lot more people.
You need both.
Yes.
Truly. So much of I have the other end. I have people who come and say, just give me more testosterone and it'll solve all my problems.
Mm.
That's not true. There is a limit. I talk about a lot, like a lever analogy,
Yeah.
right? I can pull the testosterone lever here.
Yeah.
And that is optimal. You're going to get all the benefit you're going to get. I can pull it harder. I can give you more. You will not get any more benefit. You will get more and more and more risk, and it will not solve your problems.
Yeah.
In fact, it will start to create more problems that you think are because you don't have enough testosterone. We're going to pull to here. This is the optimal level. If that is not sufficiently, if you still have symptoms, we need to find another lever.
Yeah.
Is it a microdose GLP? That is fabulously groundbreaking for a lot of my people because it helps with that inflammatory cascade. Is it, for women, again, there's the progesterone lever. Often in perimenopause, we're doing a little progesterone first, luteal phase. We do a microdose GLP, helps with the puffiness and inflammation and clarity and noise, and that all gets better. And then we do a little testosterone when they're ready for that. And that helps with the confidence and the feeling good and desire, not just in the bedroom, but in general, desire for life, joie de vivre, right? That's important. And then when they're like, I just feel like I don't have any vitality juice, I'm like, that's NAD. I can help you with that too, but only this much, this much, this much, this much. A little of each thing, because those are the depleted buckets. I'm just repleting each individual bucket.
Yeah.
And when I can support you like this, then I'm avoiding individual heavy supraphysiologic risk for any one of these things, which is the biggest difference, again, between going to a med spa that offers these things, but doesn't necessarily ask you if you have a family history of thyroid cancer or not, right?
Yeah.
And they should. We have to know what we don't know and balance everything into a, what is it that my ultimate goal is? Am I signaling to the world that I've tried really hard and you're in a push-collapse cycle, getting nowhere? Or are you going to commit to the boring basics of a routine and consistency that will absolutely get you where you want to go if you stay with it? So what you do is critically important to what I do, because if they never move, the hormones are only going to do this much.
Okay. I appreciate that. I asked a lot of clients who have either gone through menopause or are starting it or in the middle of it. Some of them have done HRT. They have been told that there's like a life cycle and how long that they can take HRT. Is that something that is like up-to-date information? Is there a time frame in which they are able to or should not?
The life cycle part is out of date, yes. So the data points to over age 65, if a woman has not had any HRT, she has withdrawn completely from estrogen and has been estrogen deplete for that long. After that point, and just like anything else, it's not the day you turn 65, it's a cross peak of risk and benefit, but effectively the scales tip into the risk category and away from the benefit category. And it's toward cardiovascular risk. Okay. So kind of think about it like at some point you've completely withdrawn and your tissues and every part of your body is completely acclimated to no estrogen. And then we replenish your tissues and we re-signal everything. Remember that estrogen is a growth hormone. Estrogen wants to build tissue. It wants to build an endometrium. It wants to build breast tissue. It wants to build weight. It wants to build. And so if you had a depleted system and then you wash it in estrogen, you may awaken cells that should not be overgrowing. And that's when we run into cardiovascular risk because of vascular changes and clot risk and stroke risk, and we run into tumor growth risk potentials. Does it mean that I have never put a woman on over 65 on estrogen? Does not mean that. It means I have a risk-benefit conversation with that woman. But in general, if a woman starts HRT earlier, she may go as long as she wishes.
Okay.
Once you withdraw, it gets tricky.
Yeah.
So the biggest, most important thing that I talk to women about is do not be wishy-washy. You cannot kind of be on HRT.
Yeah.
Do it, and you keep your tissues saturated and balanced to the right degree. And if you're done, you're done. But do not spike and withdraw and spike and withdraw. That is a recipe for disaster. Your cells do not like.
So if a woman were to utilize HRT until they were 65, and then they decided to stop,
Withdraw.
are there any risks to her stopping at that point? Would she have like a very late menopause? Like would she go through the same perimenopause, menopause, mood swings? Like, what would
Great
that
question.
look like?
Nope, that time has passed. Yes. So by the time we get to 65 and older,
Mm.
the menopausal transition has happened in the background. So even if you had an IUD or birth control pills, again, not recommended for that age group, but that's what there are still providers out there doing that.
Yeah.
Whatever form of hormone replacement has been present is covering here, but in the background, the natural system is getting quieter and quieter, and it stops. What can be expected whenever somebody withdrew from estrogen? And we see this if a woman, on occasion you get somebody who has a breast cancer diagnosis or a cervical cancer diagnosis. When that happens, we stop, right? That is still at present the firm recommendation. The data may be changing on that as well, not during cancer, like we treat.
Yeah.
But the data is shifting that maybe we do not completely withdraw people forever and ever and ever. And maybe there's an in-between, but we're not there yet. I don't do that yet either.
Yeah.
That we don't have the data for it. But we know what happens. So when we withdraw from hormones, you go to the desert feeling, right? The skin gets dry, the vagina gets dry, the libido goes down, the brain fog can be severe, the hair loss is real. So some of it is aesthetic. A lot of it is how you feel. Cardiovascular risk goes up. People say, didn't you say cardiovascular risk goes up because you're on HRT? Cardiovascular risk just goes up when you are a menopausal woman. It is an independent risk factor for heart disease, whether you want an HRT or not. So it gets into this nuance of what is your risk, because that's when we have that conversation. Other risks from withdrawal of hormones, either early on or later in life, but the risk of not replacing hormones. Bone loss is another big one. Estrogen, this should be shouted from the rooftops. Orthopedic has the most data on estrogen of any specialty, because estrogen is the single best bone protector that we have. Better than any medicine, better than any prescription, better than anything. Estrogen is the bone turnover protector. And that should be talked about for everybody, and it isn't. It should be the primary treatment for osteopenia and osteoporosis. It is supposed to be, but you don't know what you don't know.
Wow. I definitely have never heard that before.
Now you know.
I appreciate that. I think that's amazing because, I definitely deal with a lot of clients who come in who have had been put on osteopenia or osteoporosis, and we've had to have that conversation, and I'm only equipped to tell them to lift heavier and strength train, resistance training, and usually pulling them back from cardiovascular specific stuff solely. What is the best way that women can kind of preemptively, should they start, I guess it's a timeline thing, the moment they start feeling symptoms of perimenopause, they potentially start with HRT. Does that do they still need to do strength training, I guess, is what they need to do after estrogen?
Yes. Strength training is critical. It's critical. Cardio is important as far as VO2 max goes, right? VO2 max is the single most accurate objective marker out of any blood test, biomarker, scan that I could possibly do. VO2 max is the one strongest predictor of all-cause mortality and longevity in your life. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So it's important to that point, but do we need to be elliptical zombies? No, because that doesn't help your VO2, right? So as long as you have power and agility and you're working with people through that, everything else is resistance, not only for bone density, but for muscle mass. Muscle is the currency of youth. Muscle is what makes our own inherent GLP-1s. It's where a lot of our enzymatic activity happens. So fitness is critical for everybody. Yeah. My best advice is for women to start like everything else. Best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago. The second best time is today, right?
Yes.
And this is, make sure your detox pathways are working now. And this isn't woo-woo detox. This is make sure your liver isn't working overtime. Limit alcohol, drink water, avoid ibuprofen and Tylenol where you can. The acetaminophen affects the liver. The ibuprofen affects the kidney primarily, but everything cross-references.
Yeah.
So remove the poisons where you can. Eat cruciferous vegetables. So fiber is everything, but part of that is also the sulfur compounds that come in those stinky vegetables, the cabbage and the Brussels sprouts and the broccoli and the cauliflower. And those are super important for liver detox and health, but they bind extra estrogen and get it out. You have to make sure your bowels are regular. If your gut's jacked, please get help for that, right? I have historically in my mind, I'd say there's 5 non-negotiables: movement, sleep, protein, fiber, water. I would add morning sunlight to that. Those are my 6
Yeah.
non-negotiables.
Yes.
Because without any one of those things, the system will not work the way it is supposed to work. So do those things now. Get your fiber now. Detox your estrogen now so that flow happens and then you don't get this backlog. Make sure that you have your muscle mass now. Make sure you have your VO2 max now, because you're building in your 30s. A woman builds and builds and builds. She is the strongest she will ever be, usually between 35 and 40.
Okay.
Men start strong, right? They hit puberty, they hit 18 to 20, and that is like their fitness peak from a hormonal level,
Yeah.
right? And then it just kind of declines from there. Women start mid-level. I think it's because you move through the child rearing and everything else you're doing. But even regardless of whether you've ever had children, we get stronger into our 30s, and that's peak happens right here. And then we can maintain that peak from 40 all the way through 65 to 70 and then decline if we keep it there, right? But if somebody's like, I don't really even start doing anything until 40, and then the decline happens, it happens fast.
Yeah.
So do the work early. Protein, 75% of your body weight in pounds. That is what women need. They don't need 180 grams of protein necessarily. They probably need 100 to 125. And most women that I talk to, when they actually look at it, are getting like 45. It's not enough. And this is not just, I don't want to be bulky or whatever. Protein is the building block of life. It is satiety. It is muscle. It is also healing, so we don't get injured, right? Anyway, all of that is critically important. So what you do is everything. And then the moment they think they might be in that window, please go get checked and tested and add the hormones as soon as you are ready to add them. Not too early, because when you're stacked and you add estrogen on top of that, it's not going to feel good, right? So that's the perimenopause window is a little wonky. You have to ride the waves with someone who knows what can ride them with you.
When you are actually administering HRT, you had mentioned a multitude of different ways that you can administer it. Is there benefits or pros or cons to the different ways of administering it? Is there one that you prefer?
There are so many. So yes, oral pills, right? That's number one. Progesterone is safe by mouth. That's great. Progesterone pills, excellent. I avoid estrogen by mouth at all costs, unless there is a very, very, very particular reason that they cannot do anything else, right? And so that's important. Estrogen from a patch usually on your butt cheek. And there are different ones. There's big giant ones and little bitty ones, and where you change once a week or twice a week. So if a woman's got a prescription, you really hate it, talk to the pharmacist. There are probably options. There is all the buzz about shortage. So far, I have not seen it impair my ability to get prescriptions to women, as long as we are flexible with which kind of prescription. So if you only write one and you only ask one pharmacy, they may not have it, but there are many options. So ask. I don't actually recommend cutting your patches. So that's a thing that people do too, to extend it, but it does change how, even whether it's matrix or reservoir, but it changes how that medicine gets absorbed, and it is not as consistent. Creams is another one that comes from a compounding pharmacy for the most part. We have great ones in the area. Make sure you vet them. Make sure you talk to your compounding pharmacist. They will answer great questions. They are not cooking stuff up in their garage. I promise. These are very vetted, highly, highly skilled and elegant facilities. The good ones. So creams can be compounded at different levels of estrogen, with or without testosterone, with or without progesterone. And then there's vaginal estrogen, which doesn't really treat your whole body. Vaginal estrogen, it can, but it's mostly for that area. And this was a big breakthrough. They pulled the black box warning off of vaginal estrogen just in the last year. And this was massive because it took a ton of effort and work with the FDA to help them understand that topical vaginal mucosal estrogen saves lives, because women in the menopausal timeframe, even ones who cannot take whole body HRT for any reason, are safe to receive vaginal-only estrogen to prevent urinary tract infections, urosepsis, and death. So this is also, yes, preventing atrophy and irritation and pain, which arguably is valid and a valid enough reason, but also this is true medical treatment for women. Every single menopausal woman should be on vaginal estrogen, full stop, all of them, for any reason.
Would you be on vaginal estrogen and then also a patch, or is it one or the other?
Yes, because a patch will treat your whole body, but not always enough tissue support and lubrication at the place that you need it in that area. So vaginal estrogen does its own special job. It can be a cream, especially if you need it kind of externally.
Yeah.
But there are also suppositories that make it a lot easier. And for most women, you sort of re-estrogenize the tissue every night for 2 weeks, and then you only need it twice a week. Not a big deal. But that can be game changing. There are pellets. We do offer that. We offer everything. There's nothing off limits in our clinic because I believe in a full menu for each individual person. A lot of providers shy away from pellets. If you aren't accustomed to doing it, then don't do it, right? This needs to be something that is in your purvey because I'm only doing those quarterly. So there's a little bit of spike and drop, but when you do it correctly, you're not super physiologic and you're not heavily troughed.
Yeah.
But you have to know what you're doing.
Okay. You had mentioned previously synthetic versus non-synthetic and then bioidentical as well. What does that mean? And it seems like there's not a difference.
They're two different questions.
Okay.
So synthetic gets kind of confused. Natural and bioidentical sort of get put in the same category, and synthetic and bad. Synthetic versus natural just means where does it come from? Most estrogens are coming from yams. So there are some that come from pregnant horse pea. Like in general, we don't use that anymore, but it is still available. Most estrogen is now coming from wild yam, so it is natural.
Like a sweet potato yam?
Like a sweet potato, apparently estrogenic. Who knew? Not tofu, although plant estrogens are a whole other question. But for the purpose of this, they are bioidentical because those estrogens, when they are pulled from the yam and made in the lab, they chemically match my own natural estrogens, which means when I take them, however I take them, they're going to be filtered through my detox system in the same pathway without friction. So they get methylated and hydroxylated in the correct pathway instead of the more inflammatory or more cancerogenic pathway.
It's like a kid playing with the shapes and the blocks.
Exactly.
Like it
You don't want to
fits
shove
perfectly.
it in.
Gotcha.
You want it to fit perfectly.
Beautiful. Now let's change the topic that we've talked about, like not really change it, but let's shift from treating HRT, but like what does it mean long term? Why is it so important that we actually try it instead of doing the do nothing? Like, are there risks to doing nothing?
Yes, and we had touched a bit on this before. When you do nothing, which is an option, just like natural, and there are people who feel very, very strongly about this, and I think there is room for this. I'm not going to tell a woman that she's made a bad choice by not taking estrogen, right? If you feel well, some women go through menopause and it's easeful. They don't have the brain fog. They feel well. They maintain their desire and their libido and their body, and they feel good. And if that's the case for you and you've withdrawn from estrogen elegantly and you don't have any of those symptoms, then I would still encourage you to monitor your bones, right? But if you don't have any bone loss and there's no cardiovascular risk in your family and you still feel great, then your body is working and you don't have to intervene, right? We just need surveillance, and that same surveillance should be happening for all women. But the process has everything to do with your lived experience.
Okay.
And the vast majority, this is the lens that I get because I get the people who need help, right?
Yeah.
But having been out in the other parts of the world too, there's a wide spectrum. Does everybody need it? Not necessarily. If your body does well without it. That's a very small subset of people.
With the people who do well without it, do you feel that they could do better with? Like, is there potential for almost improvement? Like with a bodybuilder, like they can do better at bodybuilding or whatever, dependent upon their testosterone levels predominantly, along with other hormones and things. Does that carry over when we're not going into this supra-physiological?
It does, yes. So this is true of peptides as well, which of course is a massive excitement right now. And I use peptides every day. We never, please use research grade peptides. They have toxic metabolites. They do not have to go through the same filtration process or vetting process as compounded from 503B compounding pharmacy peptides. But it's the same concept because there is, I am fine, and then I am well, and then I am optimal. Some people would prefer to stay fine and not have to add anything else to do.
Yeah.
That's acceptable. This is your life, right? Could you perform better with support? Yes. It's a little bit like, does everybody need creatine? No. Would almost everybody do better, think better, perform better, maintain muscle better with it? Yes. Do you need 100 grams of protein a day? No, I would survive without it.
Yeah.
Can I perform my best at 30 grams of protein a day? No, I cannot.
With muscle specifically, that is like the saving grace in a lot of ways. That is our reservoir of youth, as you said. It becomes a lot harder to build muscle after menopause, correct?
It can be.
Okay. How is it just because of the estrogen and progesterone levels, or like what other factors play into why it becomes so challenging for women as they're going through menopause and perimenopause and postmenopause?
It's a great question because women describe this almost as invasion of the body snatchers. Everything I've ever done for my life that has always worked suddenly isn't working. I fall back to the same methods that I've used for decades and it doesn't work. But why? Why doesn't it feel the same? Nothing feels the same. And it's nuanced and complicated because we aren't only withdrawing from estrogen and progesterone, right? And this is where we kind of talk again about the full reservoir of being. Menopause and andropause are a decline into aging. And we have to understand that that's true in order to dig our heels in and basically fight that decline. But it is a fight. Like, this takes work and effort. So the muscle mass specifically, there's a few things that we don't make enough of, estrogen and progesterone being one of them, but those are less impactful to muscle mass than your testosterone is. And again, often T is low in peri and menopausal women, and it's one of the first things that I replace. Even before they need estrogen, they often need testosterone. Not all women, but a lot of them do. And that is game changing. It doesn't take much, just a whiff, but that alone helps them to heal and repair. So I find that I think the biggest issue for muscle building is that the repair mechanisms have started to fail. So a woman tries to push and she gets hurt. She tries to push and she can't. She tries to push and the bulking just won't happen. And this is complicated often by my sleep is disrupted. All my repair mechanisms are falling apart. So this is where sleep is important. Stop drinking or really limit alcohol. Make sure that you're hydrating. This is where, again, from my perspective, I can add testosterone, I can add BPC and TB500 on a rotation, not all the time, but sometimes a little helps that repair mechanism lock in. They need their protein and collagen, and I love 5 grams of creatine every morning for peri and postmenopausal women. Yes, it will help their muscles, but they will wake up and be like, oh, I can think when I take this. So it's been shown also to help prevent Alzheimer's in women. So
beyond just perimenopause and menopausal women, does creatine also provide a lot of value for women in general, like within their cycles and within?
I've not found that creatine is particularly useful to regulate a cycle or to provide help from a hormonal perspective, but it does, again, provide clarity and the ability to build muscle where it might otherwise be difficult. So yes, I recommend creatine pretty early in life.
Do you have a preferred creatine source, or do you think any creatine kind of valid?
Creatine monohydrate, and it is one of the most tainted supplements on the market, so we have to be really careful. I use Fullscript. It's one of the professional formularies for supplement brands because I know that it's coming from professional companies, and I know that it's being stored appropriately, and I know that it's not counterfeit. So that's why we do that. But Thorne, as a rule, I like their creatine a lot. They have a good one.
We actually work with Thorne as well.
Great, I
that
love
is
them.
where we get all our supplements.
I was not paid to say that.
Then we've talked a little bit about cardiovascular risks, and that we also need to benefit or receive benefit from VO2 max. It's the primary driver of longevity or primary signal of living longer. With women and how their hormones are changing, you said HRT can also increase the risk, but they're also at an increased risk if they don't do it. So you're just trying to find that line, and that's obviously why you work with a professional on finding that line.
Yes.
But also, are there other things that they need to be doing to help their heart?
Yes. So top 3